memories are nice, and memories is because you met people, you had a good conversation, you did something that was life-changing, or that's the past for me, and that's the memories I care. But I'm looking in the future, I'm motivated by the world for tomorrow. What can we do with what's going on, what fashion should be in the future, and so on. That it's not only fashion, because it's a bit of a boring subject for the moment. So the past is for me, I don't know, I have a curriculum vitae. I printed it out and I was panicking myself for every year what we did. So did I send it to you, that document? No, yeah. So if you look at those pages, 3 pages every year, something, it's really it's not really important for me, although it's in my body, in my mind, in the way I work, I think, and I'm absolutely not against looking or talking about the past. No, it's okay. But it's not my everyday topic, I must say.
Of course, yeah. I really just want to know a little bit about your story, I guess, and then, we can get into kind of some of the things that are happening now.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your family and the relationship you had to art and fashion when you were growing up.
Yeah, that's a good question. I like that part of my family. Yeah, well, you're smart. My family is, it's a nice story because my father, my grandfather was Italian, and he was in the war in Abyssinia when he was young. When he came back, he was transported by a train to the north, somewhere in the north, and they dropped him in Antwerp because he was quite sick. I don't know the real details because he talked a lot about the war and about those memories, but not exactly. I was a child, so I don't remember exactly why he dropped them in Antwerp. But his nurse was very good, and they started chatting, and when his health was better, they sent him back to Italy, and he left a little note, or he forgot something important, and with the phone number, because probably he had no phone, and probably I don't know why he forgot a passport or something, and so they kept in touch, and she took the train to Italy. He was in the north, in Lecco, on the Como Lake, and living very simple rural life. I mean, nothing. But he was a tailor already, so his father said tailoring, because, in the war, he was not very brave, and he made all the linings of the soldiers with the Italian flags, because the Italians are very fashionable, And that story was unbelievable. I said, God, this is great. So he was always working behind instead of going to the war, he was the tailor of the guys. And so when my grandfather arrived there, she liked it there, and they married, and until she had to stay at home, because he went to the cafe, He was seeing his friends in the cafe or on the marketplace or in the street, but she couldn't. She was a woman there, and so she said, "No, this is not working." And she was good. She said, "You are a good tailor. We go to Antwerp. We settle there, and you will become a good tailor. You will gain some money, and we will build a company there." And that's what happened, and it was a good story. That's a story I like to tell. You're very good in
that's amazing.
Interviewing.
When he was making the lining for the jackets, was he usually using actual Italian flags, or was he using a fabric that was kind of painted to look like?
That's the memory I have.
Yeah.
Maybe he was saying something else. Let me keep the memory that it was an Italian flag.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's something he told me when I was a child. And so that's what I remember. I like the idea he used the flag. I mean, let it be a flag.
Let it be a flag, yeah. And that sense of pride in your country is beautiful too, isn't it?
In which country? In Belgium?
In the Italian flag, yeah.
Yeah, the Italian flag, yeah. So Italian flag is something, yeah, probably that green, white, and red is, in on the battlefield might be something that cheers you up. I don't know the details, but it's a good story.
Of course. And then were your parents both born in Antwerp as well?
Yes, my father was in fact born in Antwerp, and he had a sister. My father was really Italian, tall, good looking, dark skin. Wow, beautiful guy. And he became a tailor because in the Second World War, as an only son, he didn't have to go fighting in the front. And so he stayed at home again and became the tailor as well. You see, that tailoring saved us in the family.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your relationship to fashion, I guess, from the perspective of seeing your grandfather and your father tailoring? I mean, is it something for you that just was kind of just something that was around? Did you grow up inside the studio? Was it something you just, you saw your dad leave in the morning and then come back and didn't have so much of a relationship with it?
Well, I think when I was a child, it was not really so close. But when later on, we went to the center of Antwerp near the station to have that new laboratory and studio. I was there with my father some Saturday morning to touch the lining of the fabric, to feel the way how it is. And so I closed my eyes, and my father asked me, "What's how do I have to cut this fabric?" I said, "Yeah, this is okay." And so that's my first memory of my father. I like men's tailoring, Drew. Men's tailoring is for me magic, and it's where everything starts for me. And I think also now that men's tailoring should be more promoted, because there you see the basics. When we had we were near the station, near the diamond business, so all our Jewish clientele was extremely loyal, but also very difficult in the millimeter. They see like the diamond. They look at the garment, the shoulder, like they look at a diamond. So that was also a very precious learning pattern for me, I guess, as a younger kid. My mother decided for me to send me to the Academy of Fine Arts because I wasn't good in Latin Greek. I liked it, but I wasn't good in more. I didn't like the teachers. They were too formal for me. And so when she sent me to the academy when I was 16 or 14 or 15, I don't remember, that was the artistic humanities. Well, that was me. That was fun. And I later on choose for fashion, to study fashion. Maybe it was not a good idea because I was more attracted to fashion, to architecture and design. But it was fun. It was fun. It was the liberation of the 60s with hot pants, Twiggy, going out, having fun. It was fun. And that moment, I found I was always myself in synchrony with myself, the creative girl that I was when I was younger.
Yeah. And then the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp ended up being a huge part of your story too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Was there something about your time there as a student, particularly? We'll get into the work that you did there, but as a student, was there a professor or was there a moment there that really sticks out in your mind as one of the foundational moments of the work that you do now?
Yes, of course, there was Madame Prigeot. She was French speaking. She was an elegant woman. And we all suffered with her because she was very tough with us, She said, the knees of a woman are awful. You can't show the knees. I was wearing hot pants, It was really... So she had those traditional roots in her... She has that French chic, She was really elegant French. And we all hated and loved her. If you ask Martin and all the others, it was like, oh, Prigeot. We all hated her, but we loved her because we learned so much from her. And so I think teaching is important in that sense that you can give your students the freedom to do what they want, but there are some no, I wouldn't say rules, but some yes and no's. When I was teaching as well, students saw at my face, oh dear, she doesn't like it. So I was already like, maybe no, let's find out what we can do there. And that's the relationship I liked to create. When I was a student, I had to fight for that as well. But when I was a teacher, that was the conversation I liked. That was the give and take. I don't have the answer. We find it together, and that's probably what I learned from her, or from the others, or from the academy in general, because you can't teach art, you can teach music because that's something you have, but art is something you have to feel, you have to reject, embrace, discuss, no, yes. And I never had that feeling that I was uncertain. I was always like, yeah, that's what I want, track. Although maybe at night I wasn't sleeping, but at the end I found the yes,
Yeah, I like to think of it sometimes as, and what I think is great about fashion, is it is a box, right? And my job is to kind of explore the edges of the box. And so, maybe your time there, using the funny example of, as a woman, don't show your knees, but there are kind of these restraints you can put on yourself that it doesn't hinder creativity, but it allows it to flourish too.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. As a student and as a designer, I wasn't really, I guess, the best. I don't know. What I did was not really breathtaking when I look at it now. But I immediately worked. My teacher, Madame Prigeot, she knew I was hands-on. There was a great ball of carnival in the school, and yep, I was on the scaffoldings doing all the thing. So I was hands-on, and I was always there. I was good. I knew what to do, and so she sent me to a raincoat manufacturer to do the markets, different markets. So I traveled to the fairs of textile fairs and so. And there I found, of course, myself that where I'm good in. I was good in teamwork. I was good in making management plans and schedules and go there and find. So there after school, I think I found my way in not being a designer, but in finding all my happiness in whatever there was going on with or without fashion. I mean,
Yeah. I thought it was fascinating looking at your history to see that Bartsons, which is what you're talking about, right?
yes,
That
yes.
the raincoat company, that was, those 2 years or so, right, that you were there, that was like your only experience like as a designer for a company. But since then you've gone on to, um, you know, I don't think we can really put you in a box as far as what you've done. You've created all sorts of things. You've curated, you've taught, but that experience as being a designer for those 2 years, um, what was it that you realized about that experience? And then how did that lead into pursuing education?
Well, when I was traveling for the raincoat manufacturer, I had the French market. They gave me the French market. And the French market in raincoats was not my cup of tea because they love pastel colors and fabrics that were a little bit so very chic, you know. Well, so that was not really my job. I was really not good in that. And I thought, no, this is not for me. I did what I was good was marketing research. I could say that's a good job. That's a good job. I traveled, and I did that later also for Dries Van Noten when he at a certain moment I closed my shop and my friend Christine Mattis was very tired. I said, Christine, you look tired. It's too much for me. Listen, if I can be from some help, and there I have a bit of time. I was already teaching. I was already doing a lot of things. But so that was also for me very good because I knew how to do an order with Barney's or with Neiman Marcus or with Japan or whatever, because I had that international objective wide spectrum of what was going on already, and then that more commercial to the point thing of making the business work. So I liked that also, that experience. And so for me, every experience is a positive one. I
And
think a lot of students after the school should do a showroom for a designer to learn how the business works. And I'm sure you agree with that.
yeah, I mean, a lot of my experience was working retail because I think it just gives you
Absolutely.
a different
Yeah,
view on the experience even of like shopping
absolutely. Yeah,
and what customers are looking for.
yeah. The retail is so important. Of course, I had my father, the tailoring, menswear. We had a shop also. We were selling. We had a shop always. The backstage was and the workshop, but I was always in the shop. Then I had my own shops in the 80s with Versace and all the fun in Italy. It was fantastic traveling to Florence and Italy in those days, you know, as a young woman. Yeah, yuppie, it was really fun. And so in every situation I had the best part of it, I guess.
Yeah, and I would definitely I want to talk to you about your store. But when you left Bartsons and you ended up going to the Royal Academy of Fine Arts, is that something you pursued, or was that something that?
Oh no, no. And oh, Drew, this is very strange. I never applied I never searched for a job. I never applied. I never sent a CV. Never in my life. Never. It always happens to me. I don't know why. But it was probably a student who came always in my shop and we talked about his collection. And then there was a teacher. She said, well, Linda, why are you good? Yeah, but she's helping me and she's good advice. So I said, well, yeah. So she called me. She said, Linda, well, maybe, yeah, okay. I started, you know. It's always happening to me. I never sent one application to nobody.
Yeah, you were creating value just by what you were doing, and people noticed, so you never had to apply.
Thank you. You're very kind. Creating value It's a good one. I'm going to take that as a note. Creating value. You're very right. Creating value. It's true. Yeah. Because the job can be boring, but if you create value, it's also interesting for your team and the people around you, not only for yourself, because I always worked hard and sometimes forgot that it was me as a person who was working hard, It was more alive, daily going on of encounters, seeing people, meeting, decision making, and so on. And that's, of course, that word that you said, creating value. I like that.
Well, I mean, Linda, I feel like that kind of describes your life story, from my view, because in a world that's, seems to be driven by, money or celebrity or glamour, you decided to build and to create value from behind the scenes, really, with investing into the next generation of creatives.
It's true, because I receive a lot, Even if I'm here now on my own in my beautiful attic with all my books on the ground and my archive and my things around me, I feel so happy. I'm happy, that I have all those books and I have all those things and I have all those and they are there as friends, and I can talk to you and I can talk to so many people if they. So I'm very happy with how I am, but the person I am today. Let me say that because I have contacts with architects in Toronto, and I'm working with working for Polymoda still in Florence. I'm trying to make my notes. I'm writing. I'm so happy. I'm spoiled. I'm spoiling myself that in a way, because I can say no. I never said no, but I if it's not me, I'm not going to jump in. So that way of working, I think you are the same person, because we are not going to talk too much about me, but also about you. I think you also have this kind of facility to say yes and no when time is ready to say yes or no.
Yeah, there's so much there we could get into. Is there someone, I mean, creating value for others, what you've done, your whole life or career, however you would want to phrase it. Is there one or two people that you learned that from? I'm really curious, because you've given so much to, designers like myself. Is there someone that really kind of spoke life into you that you almost wanted to repay to others?
Not really. Probably it's more intuition. I have intuition, knowing. It's not knowledge. I don't have a lot of knowledge, but I know. It's my knowing what I have to do intuitively. Yes, no, I go there, I do this. Or I see something like, oh dear, maybe I can jump in. So it's absolutely, I don't know if I learned this from, I have a lot of books here where for the moment I'm learning, I'm reading a lot of those small books from a lot of people where I find the same philosophy or vision or attitude. Attitude is important. When I feel that it's not for me, I don't do it. You can't convince me. You can't convince me to do something. So I feel immediately that it's not for me, or that I will be unhappy, And I think it's intuition or knowing. That those are the words that come to mind. It's not that I looked up to somebody that was my role model. I don't know. Probably not. I married a nice guy. He's still my husband since so many years. He's the same. If I say something, yeah, he has also his knowing, We're not always agreeing, but he's the documentary. He makes films. We went to the Biennale together. We have this kind of art, attracted by art. He with the documentary filming, I with, and so that's also something that happens to you. I could have married another guy and probably was unhappy after 5 years. Divorced and so on, but with 5 children, I don't know. But this guy was the guy who was made for me. He was also that kind of special person, absolutely not fitting in the society we were in together in the tennis court, So he was there, and that was good, and he's still there. He's still downstairs taking his aperitivo. That's are the things that you can say. I know that it's going. I've traveled a lot. We never, but we're still there together to enjoy every day breakfast, if I might say.
That's beautiful. And are you saying that you met him at a tennis club? Is that how you met?
Yeah, my parents were tennis, and tennis is a nice sport because you're there alone on the court. I still see the tennis in Torino. It's the ATP Torino contest with Sinner and all those big guys. I like tennis because you're there on your own on the court. You have to see the situation, and you have to apply your knowledge and your skills, and sometimes not working. So I think, I don't know. I think sports. My father was a beautiful, as I said, a big guy. He was wearing those white long trousers. Those in the early days they had those white trousers. White T-shirt. Wow, beautiful guy. And so he saw that little woman there. She was not interested in that beautiful guy, but he thought, and so they married, on the tennis club. So a lot happened in the tennis club.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's sometimes very funny. Not anymore, but it is coincidences, and it's probably you have the same, that you have a common soul that you feel that is going to work. I was lucky. We left this kind of freedom to each other as well, which is good.
What are your thoughts on the serendipity, or kind of these, as you said, coincidences that happen to us, and how it shapes our life?
I think we can make our choices. We must make our choices, because the quality of our life that we are on earth is very short. So we don't have to ruin this by doing things that are not ethical, not respectful to others, and so on. So you have a certain moments that you start probably doubting, shall I do that job? They offered me. No, it's not for me. So that internal moments that you can say no, yes, are important. And I think that that we can use this intuition more, because it's not to be, as you said, an influencer and to have a lot of money and work on that. I think people are making a fool of them for the moment. A lot of people, and women or men, I don't know, women, are losing their integrity as the person you can be and contribute to society. We have to be that. We have to positive contribute something, not taking of society, you know. Taking is easy, but giving is more difficult. For me, giving is very easy, and taking, I'm not interested. So I think that this kind of knowledge, let's say, should be more in education as well. Who am I, the teacher, to say that the skirt is too long or too short, or that you? No, we can talk about the message you want to give. I understood your work through your message. If I see your collection, I see your knitwear, and I see the last show, and I see those 3 words, I can understand what you have in mind, what you had in mind, you know, because you don't have to explain this to me. I know that. I mean, and if I can be the same for myself, giving myself that chance to know myself better than the others do, let's take that chance. And that's why I'm a lucky person and a happy person, I guess. And that's why I still want to continue giving and taking in that daily activity.
And you feel that word intuition is, do you feel like that's kind of been lost within the art system or the fashion system or even in the education system today?
I think so, because I myself, a lot on my computer and searching for the news, the latest news, and you follow because that's something that you're part of a community and you're part of the history of the world, even if it's very small. But bon. So on the other side, I think
what I believe that you're speaking to so much is about, as you know, designers and artists listening to that intuition. And you mentioned that it's important to teach kids now about that intuition. Do you feel like that's been a bit lost in today's world?
Yeah, intuition. I think when you're a student, you have a difficult moment in your life because you're not young and you're not mature. So in that kind of moment, it's very difficult for a teacher to say yes and no, it's not good, and you have to. So you have to look at the person, the work, give them technique, because without technique, you know that as a designer, you're not nowhere. If you don't know and you don't have the people around you, how to make a good sleeve, forget it. So technique is one item, is one subject we must learn, that generation. Secondly, we must give them the opportunity to know themselves. And through that, give the knowledge to others, give that message to others. And then, of course, the third element is the business. Am I doing this for myself to have fun and every day, oh, I'm a jacket, that's it? Or am I in to give it to the world and to make a business out of it? And those 3 elements are extremely difficult. I don't have to tell you that, are extremely difficult to make in balance, you know?
Yeah. That why seems to be really important in the things that you talk about to designers. I remember when we met at the LVMH prize 2 years ago. And what stood out to me about the experience of meeting you, Linda, was when I was meeting the other judges, what I encountered mostly was admiration and kind of, tell me about your thing, and oh, this is beautiful. But what stood out to me in my conversation with you is you were much more critical, and I would say in a not in a condescending way, but you were critical in that when we were talking, you were like, but why do you do this? Or like, why is this needed? And I was getting grilled by Linda Loppa, so I was nervous at the time. But
sorry.
It was a beautiful experience, Linda, because it's really the moment that I still think about to this moment, and that that why I think is really important to me. But why is the why important for you as a teacher?
Because now I recognize your work as an honest process, and I recognize you in that work. If I look at your latest show and so on, that's so beautiful to see that you and your work is one. You belong to that collection. It's your story, it's your life, but it's not autobiographical, only autobiographical. But I recognize you in your work. That authenticity is so important. And so the fact you grow in those 2 years probably to this, from that to this, is amazing. But that is not me who did that, it's you who did it. So you have now the potential to express who you are, which is an enormous gift and an enormous achievement. Don't undervalue yourself in this, because really it struck me when I looked onto your work, because you contacted me because we found itself on Instagram. I said, oh, who is the guy? And I searched for, and so this is you. What I discovered is you, which is unbelievably important that you achieved that in 2 years or 22. Not even. So I think it's not me who is going to teach you that, but we can have a conversation. I think the conversation we had there was important for you, and that's for me is sufficient. That's my reward. I mean, that's good for me. That's a good feeling I have. If I don't have a good conversation, then probably it's not, the message is not, it happens to me that I go in LVMH, oh, hello, how are you? And maybe it's the winner, I don't know. But not the Japanese this year. He was my favorite. He was really good. But it happens in LVMH especially. It's very a good exercise for myself. I like to do that because sometimes I go and I go back, and I like the person in the personality. I'm catched by the personality. If I'm also catched by the work, and I'm also going back and I can discuss and I can talk, then there is a positive feeling also for myself. If it's not working, I will not really, I go back to understand why it's not working for me. But I like doing that, the conversation especially.
Yeah, it seems like that intuition piece is not just about you and the work that you're doing, but almost the intuition between two people in a relationship sense. I mean, I feel like I had this really strong connection with you, and vice versa. And I think that intuition piece is part of that equation.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. When I Googled you and I looked up, I said, well, it's good we do that. We do this conversation because I felt it was going to work. If it, because there were some elements in your discussion that stuck to me, and why I thought, yes, this is this is going to work. I mean, but it's also, I mean, it's not only about me, it's about exchanging these ideas and talking to you, that conversation. Otherwise, it's an interview, I'm not interested, you know. And if we can see each other again and we can fall, I mean, there is a kind of friendship then, and that's important in fashion, friendship. Because what is it now to be in the Met on the gala event? I mean, is that friendship or is that competition between one having more legs to show? It's absolutely ridiculous, and that's a bit the pity of the situation fashion is in today.
What are your thoughts on competition, and if it's good for fashion, and maybe how did you handle that as a professor between your students?
I never saw competition between my students because they were so different from each other. My dear, there was never competition. Some could see on my face if I didn't like what they were doing, and they said, "Oh dear, Linda," and so we started. When I meet them then in Paris, and they say, "Oh, Linda, I remember that day you were so tough with me," but I never saw that competition. Even those who are not talented or less talented need support and need a yes or no and why. The why it's not good. It's very delicate. It's very difficult for a teacher to say it's not good. You can say but there is the positive to develop, and you can say the no to correct.
Yeah, and I think that, it's also part of our human nature, I guess, to fall into this mindset of feeling like it's a competition between each other. I think you have to be really careful of those thoughts, especially as artists.
Yeah, especially as a designer and you are in Fashion Week. I mean, how many designers are there now? And it's an enormous competition. And but the uniqueness lies in the human approach, I guess.
Absolutely.
And I think the buyers know that if it's a good buyer, if it's an honest buyer with a good experience and a good vision and a good intuition, again, then they know that that's the good designer to invest in, and that's the one probably not for me. As a retailer, it's important. I was a retailer and never made money, but I had always the first Versace and all the designers who were very unknown, so I had to struggle in to sell them in the beginning, and I was not really. But I learned a lot in retail. I must say. I learned a lot in retail. I traveled a lot, and I could understand the psychology of the person who wants to buy something or not. But I was not always also in my shop as I was teaching, and so I think that psychology you have to invest in it. You have to to do that really intensively, and it is very unrewarding to have a shop because you invest so much money and you don't know if you're going to sell. It's a complete stupid activity. It's completely suicide. So I remember I at the end I bought Comme des Garçons. I had to pay in advance, and I mean, come on, wasn't me, it wasn't me.
Do you remember the process of buying for your shop, which was called Loppa, right? What was the process of finding those new designers? Because, you were doing it in a time before you could look it up on Instagram or look on their website. When you discovered, Jean-Paul Gaultier or Comme des Garçons, what was that process like? And how did you pick what was going to be in your store?
I don't know. I don't remember. We went from one show to another. I went to with some people of my shop sometimes. I went to a showroom and I thought, Jean-Paul Gaultier, oh dear, it's funny. And probably, I know, to the press, to Marie Claire and the magazines, to the magazines, of course. Because there was that jacket of Jean-Paul Gaultier, that beautiful jacket, with the color. Beautiful. I said, that jacket. I bought that jacket, of course. But there was fun. And Thierry Mugler, those shows, they were worldwide. And I mean, that was the spectacle that we thought of, what we see now is not really new. I mean, Jean-Paul Gaultier was 6,000 people. Maybe 2,000 people in the arena. Was fun with Madonna who came out of the thing. It was fun, and I was there, and my students, I copied the invitations for them. They came also, and so afterwards it was fun. We went to the nightclub, but the 80s were that kind of fun factor. 90s fun factor where discovering something, you have to fight for it, because I was not the only shop. When I did my first order in Gianni Versace in Milano, and I said Antwerp, they said Antwerp. They didn't know where it was. Belgium. Oh, Belgium. I had to show on the map where it was. So that's a kind of. I see you smiling, but it was like that. I mean, but Versace was, of course. In the magazines, he was the guy who came in the news, and as my Italian roots, I spoke a little word Italian, so I had an introduction. And I remember I was wearing a white coat embroidered by Versace, white Versace coat. At that time, I thought it was big and wide, but I think it was. But I went to the Pitti Uomo fair in Florence because my father was a tailor, so we went there for the menswear. And that coat, my dear, I had so much success with that coat of Versace. And that's nice. I mean, that was the heartbeat. Remember? That was the heartbeat.
But then you also invested in Comme des Garçons, which was, had a completely different identity.
That was the end of my career. I was always following Adrian. I knew Adrian Joffe. I don't know why or how I met him, but then he stepped into Comme des Garçons, and that's why it happened. Yes, I don't remember.
It's funny to hear you talk about, having to explain to the commercial team where Antwerp is on a map, because now, and being the student that I am, I think you really haven't stepped into our world unless you know about Antwerp. But I'm curious about and I was trying to do a little bit of math, and the Antwerp Six, as they were later called, I believe that they graduated around the same time that you had started. Is that about right?
It was a bit on the same, because they all left in different moments. You Antwerp 7, because Margiela was there. Mm-hmm. I was, because of my work of Bartsons, my ex-teacher, she asked me to do some lectures there. So I did that. Martin was there. So I think afterwards, Dries Bickenbergs was in a different year with his final year, and then the others graduated. I don't remember. I started teaching, when they graduated. I was a bit in that moment.
And I think it can get lost now that there was some time in between when they graduated before, their brands really took off. But I'm curious about what was the energy like at the time in Antwerp when you did start teaching, and how did that energy kind of create this renaissance for fashion?
Mm-hmm. That was, if you look, I will send you the CV. There was a certain moment from the Belgian government, a lady, Helena Raveist, and she was nominated to study that fashion movement that was starting, because there was a minister the Minister of Economic Affairs, who said, we have this fashion industry. It was more textile industry, the linen industry and so on, in the Flanders. And he said to that woman, Helena Ravest, go and look at Antwerp. There is something going on. Okay. So we had a meeting. She came to the show. And then suddenly, also Dirk Bickenbergs had this idea, I guess, to start the contest, the Golden Spindle. And that was a breakthrough for everybody, because Anne and the Burgomaster and Dries and Bickenbergs and Rick van Saan and Walter, they started working at home, closing doors, no contact with each other, closing doors. For a few months, they worked on the collections. And then finally it was the contest. And when we saw them on the stage, they had always the same ideas coming up, the buttons there. It was a kind of link between. And so that was the beginning, from the awareness that we could do this as probably a kind of fashion movement. It was not always the government who has those ideas in general, but this time, yes. I mean, so let's continue believing in politics, although it's difficult. But this time was actually, it was working.
And so that prize kind of allowed those designers to have a worldwide stage in a way.
Yeah. There was attention in the beginning. We were with a few people, and then international press came and buyers and so on. Yeah. And meantime, be careful. In the meantime, the academy was booming, and I, with the shows we organized, that was also 2,000 people coming there. You can't believe it. It was in the Handelsburgs, a beautiful hall, packed with people. They all bought a ticket. They come from Japan, so we had the same momentum, Day with the Golden Spindle, way with the academy. It was, wow, beautiful.
I'm sure it was an amazing time to be there. I did reach out to one of the Antwerp Six, Walter, because I told him that I was talking to you. And I asked him if he had a little anecdote that I could ask you about. And this is what I'm going to read what he said to me. So he said, my first collection, Bad Baby Boys and Let's Tell a Fairy Tale, were presented in Linda's loft. At that time, it was an amazing new type of place, a huge loft with minimal furnishings where Linda was living at the time. And he said, great memories and great souvenirs. So
how sweet, how sweet, yeah.
It sounds like you were even hosting shows. Was this actually the place you were living at the time?
Yeah, I sent you the pictures. It was at a certain moment we had a friend who was an art collector in Ghent, and he was living in an industrial 10,000 square, 7,000 square meter. We came in, we saw a Richard Long lying there and an artwork there, and we went home and we sold. We sold the house or the part. I don't remember where we were, and so we were looking for a warehouse that we found in the south in Antwerp, nearby the museum, and it was 1,500 square meters, 500 square meters, 3 levels. And so we renovated. We didn't have money. We renovated it. I don't know how. We put the floor heating in ourselves, and the walls were never painted. They left like there was in the rough. But that was amazing. I will send you the pictures of the loft. It was in World of Interiors and a lot of magazines. It was really minimal with a beautiful kitchen. And Dries also did his showrooms with there, Dries Van Noten. So MoMu was cooking, and all the clients of the world, they came to see the loft. And yes, that was a place. That was a place. It was beautiful.
Everywhere you've gone, you've been able to create an environment for designers to flourish.
Raf Simons also did a presentation. Raf was he came to my shop when I was finishing. I told that I was going to close the shop, and he came and he said, "Linda, I want to speak to you. You have to help me or distribute my collections or that." Who are you? Raf Simons? Okay. So we became friends, and he came to the loft. Did also a little installation there with his furniture, with his collection, the first ones. And so a long, beautiful story also with him.
I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you about this because the story that he really tells about starting is that Walter introduced him to you, and he was actually hoping to see you to get into your class to study under you.
Yeah, but you know everything. Yeah, I was already forgotten. But he came to the show and really crying. I said, "Oh, Lena, I want to go. I want to go." But I saw his work already in the furniture, what he did, and he was a good designer. He did already the design school. So I said, "Oh, Raf, you're going to lose your time. You're mature. Do it. Go to a secondhand, make a jacket, a blazer, a trousers, a thing," because I knew he was going to do that sharp tailoring. He was attracted to that, and my father went once in a while to give him some guidelines. So that was a good decision. It was a good decision.
And yeah, I mean, what's beautiful is that he recognizes that moment is one of the reasons, or that you were one of the people that really kind of encouraged him to be where he's at today. And it seems like go after you. Go ahead.
No, please.
Well, I was just gonna tie that in with Demna as well, and Demna talks about how he really was inspired by your teaching, and specifically about the business part, because you asked him, like, Demna, you have to think about who this is for and who's gonna buy this.
Yeah.
And that was a formidable experience for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the key of the conversation in education. It's psychology, It's psychology. It's not always working, but if you feel, it was a big class there. There were 13 people or 12. It was a big class. But I knew he was a good tailor. He was good in menswear. He did menswear then. I knew he was motivated to make money, because where he came from, he had to fight for that. And so knowing all those elements, you see a guy before you and you say, yeah, that's his talent, his potential. Yes, no, there you go. And that's what we talked about before.
Yeah. Linda, you've seen so many incredible designers have crossed your path. Is there a through line between the designers that have been successful that you've, taught or been a part of their journey, like Walter or Martin or Dries or Demna? Is there something different that you recognized in them early on that kind of gave you this intuition?
Yeah. Let's talk about Chris van Aschen.
Yeah, he's another one.
Chris was very shy, very young, not very young when he started. And we worked a lot together on that last year collection. We worked really closely to it. And you see where he is now. He's very mature. He's a beautiful person. He had great experiences with Dior and with others. He's absolutely a beautiful person, a beautiful person. And I'm happy that I could talk with him through that collection final year at that time.
And what was it about the experience with, Chris specifically that kind of gave you that, that helped you guide him further into his own ability?
Oh, I can't. I'm not into those details. I liked the person. I liked his being very young, open, and I could guide him. Punto. I don't know about all the. It's the most important thing is the person he is today. It's not me who made him. He was already an interesting person, an interesting guy with a vision and motivated and ambitious. So if you have those elements, nice guys, ambitious, and you can make it. Probably, a lot of people who are not going to make it, but he had the talent to make it. That's psychology.
Yeah. How much has timing played a role into all of their stories?
Yes, timing is also important in my work. When I started the Modern RC, the Modern Museum, the Flanders Fashion Institute, all that, time was ready to do that. I wouldn't do that now today. I would really do something different. But the timing it's always a great part of the success, of course. I think you feel that as well. What you are doing is now, I think, interesting in the timing of what you do. You are going. Your approach is an honest approach. You're trying to go into the human side of the business, and that's what you are strong in now. I think you found your perfect timing to do this. 2 years ago was not, maybe we didn't. So that I don't have to explain to you what timing is and how that works. Some designers are probably in the wrong timing. I don't know. If I see the fashion weeks, it's all very classic. I like it. The critiques is in Milano, it's too classic. If Gucci is classic, Eviva, it's beautiful. But if the press doesn't like it, and if the customers don't like it, and they need flowers and daffodils, what can we do? I think he's the right guy for Gucci. Bene. Am I the only one? Okay, that's my opinion. I'm not a journalist, so I don't have to do that job. I don't have to judge anybody. I can only have my own perception of what I like. And I stick to that because I'm not going to read an article. Okay, I can have a doubt if they say, yeah, but there is nothing interesting in that presentation. I don't know. Maybe it's the journalist who doesn't look backstage to the garment. Maybe I am wrong. Could be. maybe I didn't felt the Gucci, but I thought, oh, maybe finally I'm going to buy a Gucci jacket because it was a beautiful jacket, and then I'm a happy person. But who am I? I am not so important in that part of the business. I'm an outsider, and I can judge for myself. I don't have to make a business out of it.
Yeah. I think what's interesting and maybe frustrating about timing is that you only really recognize it when it's in the past, I think. When you're in the day-to-day and you're, hustling to put your brand together, the collection together, you're, at least I can speak for myself, but it really is listening to that intuition. But only later on can you recognize the timing of things. For instance, my story is that, I spent 10 years trying to make something happen. And because I don't have a fashion education, so I started graphic printing T-shirts and then getting into cut and sew. And it was really over COVID that I had been trying to make something happen for 10 years. And now I had 4 months where I couldn't go to work. So I was in my studio every day. And I was like, analyzing my thoughts and thinking, I can't make something for other people. I need to make something for myself. Mm-hmm. And the first collection for iRay was really born during COVID after I had that hard conversation with myself. But then that also led to, Dover Street Market buying my first collection for 3 of the stores, but then also getting invited to be a part of Paris Fashion Week calendar, because I think I would not have been able to do that if there weren't so many people around the world that just actually could not travel to Paris. And so all of a sudden they had a bunch of slots that were open for physical, for physical presentations.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's difficult about timing, right? Is like you can only really move with intuition, and there's a lot that you can't make happen.
Yeah, intuition. The timing is, I think COVID was a bad history because many people died or were sick and so on. But for me also, I was writing my book on the 11 containers, and I was so passionate about that. I was on my own in my office working on that idea. And now I found my Toronto architects who liked the project. So I think COVID was a kind of confrontation with ourselves. We had time for ourselves. So what can we learn out of that? We don't need another COVID, but we need time for ourselves. We need to have those moments, a break, look in the mirror, do something. Maybe not even look in the mirror because we look bad with COVID. We didn't have, but we can, but we can, I started writing, I learned writing there. It was so fascinating. I had my little book, Life is a Vortex, that was before COVID. And my students, when I was in Poly, I said, Prof, we were reading your Life is a Vortex. Yeah, we loved it. And so they were, I didn't, that scared me a bit because I didn't know people were reading my books. I mean, I did that intuition. I'm not born a writer. I'm not educated as such. So I was writing every morning, took some ideas and so on. The second book was during COVID, and I was also writing. That book is not so good as the first one, but the part of the containers is the one I'm developing further now. And what can we learn about that? We have to face that situation of being isolated with ourselves and trying to find the strength to overcome the isolation, And I think we learned, we all learned a lot about that. about the fact that we, even alone on our planet here in my wonderful attic, alone, I'm so creative for the moment. I can't stop doing things. From Toronto, they said, Linda, can you explain more about the containers? How will the... One day I started it. In the evening, I have my project. I have it. It's amazing. I don't know where I get that energy, because I'm not distracted by other things. I go in my computer, I write it down, and it's there. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I don't believe it myself, how much is coming out of myself for the moment. Oof, it's there. It's amazing, because I'm not detracted. I'm living here on the seaside in Belgium. There's nothing that happens, so except doing shopping for food and some essential things. I go to my computer, it comes out. And I think COVID was actually a learning process of how to cope with ourselves, with our lonely self. Our lonely self. What can I do with myself? And you did a good job, and I did a good job, and I learned how to survive without any assistance and being the director of a school. I'm on my own here, and so it's a learning process in that I think was, in a sense, important for creativity.
Absolutely. It was for me. But at the same time, if we're looking at the other side of the coin, I feel like some of the issues that maybe we're seeing happen today and in the media were exacerbated a little bit by COVID, in that now people were locked in their house, and they couldn't connect with others. And lots of people turned to the internet and to social media, which I'm curious what you think about this. I don't think that's, innately a bad thing, but I do think that has, made some of our thoughts and feelings more extreme about certain things, because we were only connected within this kind of social media universe where the most extreme things are what you see.
Yeah, it's true. You're absolutely right. It's now 90 and 10%, and before it was 10% and 90%. You were 10% on online, and the rest was your own daily connection. Now it's the opposite. So there is a danger, absolutely. There is a danger of lacking personal judgment. Yeah.
It's almost harder to have boundaries for yourself with technology, because there's this feeling that you're missing out, really, if you're not checking on things, because we're all so connected. I mean, emails are expected to be responded to right away, text messages, phone calls.
Yeah.
So what do you have a daily practice that gives you a balanced relationship with technology?
Yes, absolutely. And in the morning after breakfast, a bit of news. The news is so bad, but you have to know, you have to see it, not on the television screen, because I can't see that suffering. But we have to be aware what's going on and how terrible humankind can be to each other. It's terrible that people in this kind of moment in history are so cruel. That is something that brings you in a certain mood, your mood of the day. It's also tennis that brings the mood of the day. I can see a tennis match in the end of the day, at the end of the day. To see sports and tennis gives me also a psychological background of how those young guys cope with their bodies and their minds. So you see how you have those two extremes in the morning and in the evening. And in between, you have your screen, your computer, your work, your connections, your projects. I'm working on an event in January for Polymer that it's a difficult one. So I'm really focused on that. I have coffee at 2:00 with something with my husband. We had a little chat up and we continue. So the days are really, I think, well organized in the sense of the not organizing on purpose. It's happening like that. And when I got to my computer and I got on a text and I start writing, it comes automatically. I'm in a good mood for the moment. I'm in a driving force. I mean, yeah, I feel that on my skin. I'm motivated. Might be that one day I say, oh, this is too much. I'm going for a walk, but I'm coming back and I start again. So I'm in that mood for the moment. I'm not. Maybe you call me within 6 months and it will be different. I don't know.
That daily practice is really important, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
You've been teaching over, the course of the last, 40 plus years, and you've seen not only the rise of social media, but also of technology and the internet. How has that changed teaching fashion students over time?
I must say that I stopped teaching fashion students when I became the director of Polymoda in 2007. I was a director. I had a job to do there. And the school grew. I was lucky that I had the correct strategy to bring that local school to an international platform. I was often in the classrooms at the end of the year of the rehearsals for the fashion design, but also the marketing students. So you saw different types of young people, ambitious more on the business side or ambitious more on the design side, the communication side, and so on. I think what I did in education was giving a structure to the school and with different sections and different approaches, different languages to use also. But I didn't have the patience anymore to go in the classroom. It's not for me anymore. I stopped going in regular basis teaching in 2007. So I'm not really, you can't say that I'm still the teacher I was before. I'm a different person. I'm more a conceptual thinker, a curator, a motivator. I'm a sponge that needs to be filled every day with new so that I can give back. So I'm not really that good in before the classroom or one-to-one. Yes, I can be one-to-one. I can have the patience to talk to young people, but it doesn't happen to me so much.
Yeah. At the same time, I think you've been around it so much, even from a one-on-one perspective, or even as you're curating, you've been able to feel, I'm sure you've been able to feel the energy shift as, Instagram and other technologies have come to the forefront.
I love Instagram. I don't use it 100% well, but I met you and I met another guy. It's fantastic. I couldn't live without Instagram anymore. It gives a sense in my life. I mean, posting something and I push myself to say something useful, but then it doesn't come. I stop doing it. But it is a kind of autobiographical thing because you have to express yourself with images, with words, 5 words, 10 words. I don't write. I see the journalists now like writing text like 5 pages on Instagram because they don't use the social. So Instagram is becoming press releases, is becoming publicity, is becoming commercial. So, but I like my little Instagram account. It's not very important. Sometimes I think I should do better, but I think it's something I wouldn't miss anymore. I like it, and it's my daily activity.
It's like another one of your art projects, I feel like.
Oh yeah, that's good. Thank you.
It's like your visual journal.
Yeah, is it okay? You saw that picture that I took on the Avenue Montaigne.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, recently.
I took that. I don't that coat with the two shoes. You saw that?
Yeah. Yeah. Is that just a person that was on the street kind of covering themselves
I
with a
don't know.
jacket?
I didn't check.
Yeah.
I didn't check. I couldn't check because I thought it was an installation. And then I thought maybe there's a person inside. So I didn't check. But the image struck me. It was really interesting.
Yeah. It almost felt like it was a magazine ad for Balenciaga or something.
Strange, huh?
Yeah.
It stuck me. I was shopping. It was before the Balenciaga store, by the way, not far from there. So strange. That image was one of my best images lately. But was it real? Was it not real? Was it? I don't know.
One of the things I had to get over early on was this kind of sense of competition, with Instagram, because I think what social media can do is it pushes to the forefront, people who have hit the jackpot in a way, the 16-year-old kid who has kind of blown up within fashion, or, the 10-year-old fashion designer or whoever it is. Mm. And so I'm curious to see how, the next generation of designers grows kind of within only knowing that environment. I feel like I was a bit lucky because Instagram came out when I was a student in university. And so I feel like my most vulnerable years were spent without social media. I'm generally an optimistic person, but I do worry about, the students who are coming up now who have, kind of only have known social media.
I'm not worried because, as I said, intuition and knowing is something that you have to develop. I don't know if education is doing that. That's the problem. I think what young kids have now as possibilities is huge. And it will not fade away. So let's accept it. That's the world today. I think they will survive because that's in the human philosophy. And if they feel that this is going in the wrong direction, they will jump out. That's what will happen for sure. I don't think that the world is going to disappear and connections will disappear. Look, without internet, we wouldn't have this nice conversation. So let's accept this kind of situation and don't worry about the future. Don't worry about those kids. They will find solutions. They will get through their own. They will find their own ways. In my 11 containers, I have the now container. It's the container for the young generation, the Gen Z or the Alpha or whatever you call them. That's the only container. I'm not writing the content. That's for them. They will write the content. Who am I to say what they have to do? And give them a space and they will try to do something or explain or write or shout or disappear or break the rules or write on the walls. I don't know. Or stay in their bedrooms and become aliens. That's the other alternative. And that's, I don't know, children have this capacity to understand, they're smarter than we think. If I see those young kids with their eyes, they know exactly what's going on. They have this intuition also to survive. That's the humankind. Don't be worried. They will find their ways.
Yeah, I believe that too.
Yeah. They will find their solutions. The more internet, the more they stay home and the more they get in home and they don't come out. Okay, that's a problem, really a problem, danger. But it's impossible. They will go out. They will change the world. They will take a position. They will fight against it or they will embrace it. Don't worry. Don't worry. Be happy.
Yeah, that's a good word. When you left the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in 2006, you ended up going to Florence to be the director at the Polymoda school. What was your feeling at the time when you left Antwerp? And then I'd be curious to know how being in Florence kind of changed how you were feeling about the work that you were doing.
Oh, Drew, in Antwerp I was the Italian guy and in girl, and in Italy I was the Belgian girl. So I have those two roots. I have those two mentalities in me. If I'm going in Italy, I speak fluently Italian. I go back, I speak. It's my second nature. I'm both. So I was really happy to do that job. Yeah, really. I was flattered, and I was. My first speech was in English, and everybody, oh, fantastic! Nobody understood. Afterwards, they said that to me. They spoke a word of English, and but the team was nice. The people were nice. They were all happy I was there, and yeah, there was a good. I had good memories of that. It was teamwork. It was bringing new ideas, bringing new energy. Yeah, it was good, really.
Did you feel like you needed to explore something different and maybe a different way of directing? Did you kind of feel like you needed a new place to search?
I needed a new place, definitely. I needed a new place. It was too much for me. It was too much. I couldn't cope with all the pressure. There was the school, I was the museum, I was the cafe, there was the Modernasi, there was the public-private institutions. I had to manage the city of Antwerp, the province of Antwerp, the Flemish community, and so on. It was too much. And I think it was perfect timing to get myself together in a new situation. Yeah.
And what is a beautiful city like Florence with rich art history? How does that change, or does it change how, modern designers work or think about inspiration?
Drew, Antwerp and Florence are the same cities. They have both their histories from Rubens, Van Dyck, and Renaissance and so on. It's the same. It didn't felt very different for me. My Italian roots came up, so I was more the Italian. But it's the same size of city. It's the same restrictions and the same opportunities. It's actually not really different.
So there was something familiar about being in Florence that was...
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, very familiar. Antwerp and Florence is the same size, the same history, the same... the weather is better in Italy. The summers are beautiful, but there is the beach. Like here is the beach. It's actually the same. It's really. I have the friends there. I have my friends here. Absolutely no. It was quite a copy and colla, they say in Italian. No, copy and colla. It was a bit the same situation, same environment, same yes and no's, same structure, same strategy. It was easy for me.
I'm always thinking about the place we are, the kind of energy it brings. I was thinking recently about Brian Eno, who's a musician. I don't know if you're familiar with Brian Eno.
Yeah. Brian Eno, yeah.
He has this wonderful thing he says, which is when you look at the artists that are considered geniuses, what they really had was something he calls scenius, which is, they were amazing artists, but what they really had were people around them that were able to push them, further. So they're considered genius, but really they were not just in the right place at the right time, but they had other people that were inspiring them. I'm curious to know if that, topic of scenius is interesting to you, but also with how we are now that we're so connected, is a place still important when, you're working on art or fashion?
That depends, Drew, if you have a team or not. If like for me, I'm alone. I can work whatever in whatever city for the moment. That's not. But if you have a team and you have the responsibility, like I had in Florence, to guide the school and to make it a kind of it was a responsibility. You can't say, well, I will see in the morning. I don't know what I'm going to say to my team. No, you have a responsibility. Depending the job and the job profile and what you are asked for to do. In that case, when I was a museum director, I had my business, I had my budget, I had my ideas. We went wild. We did wild exhibitions. If I look at the things we did, it was amazing because nobody was actually experienced. We never had. There was a museum in Antwerp, but more on textiles and lace. It was so boring. Nobody went there. You don't say that in the interview. But it was really boring. So everything we did in the museum was sparkling, exciting, and so on, and people loved it. So it depends on which size of the business you are. Now, I don't know how many people you have to as a responsibility in your business. Maybe it's not so many, but within 5 years, you have 100 people there. You have a responsibility. You will talk differently and think differently. So that's absolutely a question. I can answer that depending the job and what you are supposed to do and the responsibility you have. If you're on, I can not work tomorrow. I'm going for a walk, basta. But if I'm there in my job as director of a school, I have a mission, and I had also a plan to show to my superiors, my president, and my commission and my committee. Hey, that was actually the business wise, the profile I prefer to do. I like that. Antwerp was more experimental, there was nothing. So everything you did was sparkling, was wow, But in Italy, there was already something, and I had to structure it and make it work. That was interesting. That was challenging. And I like to do that. The more difficult it is, the more I like it.
And when did you get into curating? Because that's, I think, an interesting part of the work that you've done, coming from an educational and then the retail standpoint.
Yeah. Curating, I think it was in Antwerp 93. We had Antwerp Cultural City. We had a few things that the city organized, and we with fashion, we were a bit booming. So I did a kind of project there. It was 93, I guess. I will send you and then I think my shop window was also curating. You have a shop window, you have to put something in. So I think I love to do that. I love to put an object in a contest, and that's the object. So we did. There was also a warehouse. It was fantastic in Antwerp 93. And then I started doing this more. We also used the shop windows in Antwerp to do a kind of fashion walk, in the city. And everybody curated the window. So it's in my I think it's important that with students, for example, in Florence, I used the windows of Hermes, Gucci, and all the windows to put something of a student's work in it. They said, they're not going to accept. It's going to work. It worked. And students learned how the perception was in the window from. So I think everything you do that is putting your show, you're a curator. You're curating that show. The lighting, the decisions you take is curating, and still now I think the containers. I will send you the 11 containers. Is really curating, because I wrote them during COVID, and I have a very specific topic for every curate. I have a brain container, for example, and the brain container is very important because I'm reading this little book, Neuroplasticity, how the brain works. So, but now in the context of Toronto, my architects, the brain container, I was a bit working on a different intake if it comes in an e-commerce vision. So it depends the situation. If I continue with my 11 containers on the topics I have in mind, I can't change them because there is the speaker's corner. The speaker's corner is something that I would like to launch. In every city of the world there is a speaker's corner, like it was in London. People come on this and they start talking about something, and it's giving a platform. Now it's in digital form. It's giving a platform to young people to say what they think. That's the speaker's corner. Mm-hmm. Young people, whatever. So I think in every container we have a kind of subject that is very important for me. There is the history container, where it's not talking about the past, it's the history of today and see what we can do tomorrow. There is a dining container because the dining is an activity where we meet together, we talk sometimes. We launch some ideas that afterwards we think, oh, that was an interesting conversation. Dining containers is my favorite because it's around the table that you sometimes have the best ideas.
The search for ideas is always something that you've done. I'm curious about, you did a TEDx talk 10 years ago now.
Oh, you know everything about me. You did so much research.
I wanted to be prepared,
oh, my
Linda.
Dear, I forgot. I forgot that one.
Yeah, you did a TEDx talk, which I watched, and among a lot of the ideas that you put forward, you were really a proponent for the future and fashion looking to the future, and some of the ways that you believed that fashion could push the envelope, I guess, is through fabric and technology. But there was something you said that I thought was really fascinating. You used Chanel as an example, and you said that with Chanel, we're still wearing ideas that are 40 years old. And I had to think about that for a little bit. And I'm curious now, 10 years since you did that talk, do you still feel that fashion is looking too much in the past?
Chanel is an example that is unique. You can't compare it with the fashion industry. So it is unique because it's one idea translated in 1 million other ideas. It remains always Chanel. So that's something unique. If I like it or I disagree, or that doesn't matter. But that's a kind of phenomenon that happens in is Chanel looking too much in the past? No, it's a vision and it's their way of working. But if everybody should do that, then we're in trouble. I mean, I want to be surprised. I want to be surprised by what I see on stage or on Instagram or whatever, and if I see to your work and I see I like that. I mean, if you're within 20 years you do the same sweater, I will say Drew. I mean, so I think that example was also important for people in that moment, mm-hmm. in the talk, because they're not all they were not fashion people. I mean,
it was so you have to give examples for that moment.
Yeah. That's I read.
Do you think
that's not really
I mean, 10 years from that moment, do you feel like fashion is good at looking to the future as a whole?
Some do. I mean, luckily, otherwise I wouldn't. I try to look at shows on my Instagram, here on my Fashion Week connections. I see the Prada and I think, yeah, it's okay, and it remains aesthetic. It remains Prada. It means authenticity, but still changing some things here and there. It looks good. But of course, the question, if you would ask me this within 6 months, I would give you another answer. What is today is, of course, a bit strange in a way that the Gucci we knew for so many years with Alexander was good. There was a good Gucci. We were used to that, and now we're lost. What's Gucci? What is it now? It lost identity, or is he going to do something? So we are in a transitional moment because a lot of designers are stopping. Poor guy who died yesterday, and for the collection of it. So you have a kind of younger generation in the 35, like you, probably your age, 30, that are having big responsibilities. Is it going to work? I don't know. Were they as strong as Michele for Gucci, because he had kind of very important signature? They don't have that. I mean, are we? I feel there is some uncertainty about a lot of collections. I think you have that as well. I want your opinion because you are interviewing, you're asking questions, but I want to ask you, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, Linda, I'm because I think I didn't come from a fashion background. I view, fashion shows, I think, a little bit differently. I mean, because as an industry, we've been doing, a traditional catwalk for 50 or 60 years now. And I think a lot of people, a lot of the heads of our industry were talking, especially through COVID, about how fashion needed to change, how the schedule needed to change. But then it just seems like we picked right back up where we left off.
Exactly.
The show structure. Now, since then, I've done, I did 2 shows that I guess you could categorize as a catwalk because it had that element. But for me, the goal really was to add a different element in there. And for each collection, it was the idea for the right time and the right collection. But, generally I'm a little bit discouraged maybe about how we show our work. But I think part of that is just how we've done it traditionally. And so that ends up being the way that we continue to do it. And so, I'm kind of a believer in, pushing the boundaries even of how we show our work as designers.
The fashion weeks are so fully booked and packed, and you can't see them all. I saw many Rick Owens shows, but the latest I skipped because, it's again the same location, same things. You don't see those garments in the shops because it's experimental and that's it. So I have those. I'm going to Paris to meet people and to see a good show and to see an exhibition and see some friends during Fashion Week. I need that. But I don't go to see all the shows. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. I can look at it on internet afterwards and then I know exactly what. But is there an alternative? That's the question. What is the alternative? What is the solution? How can we do better?
Well,
that's the question. I think you have already found a niche where people are looking at your work through that video, and then afterwards you have Dover Street Market where they can wear it and try it on. I think that's a good balance. I think your balance is correct between not too much information on your website, but soon you will do e-commerce. You will put your sweaters on your knitwear online. I can buy them online. I want to buy one online or whatever, So soon you will do that step, and then you do a second step, and you do that. Fashion weeks are what it is. It's really overwhelming. Starts in in New York and London as well. So you can't do them all. Really, the buyers for shop buyers have a difficult job in traveling constantly, but they are very spoiled. All those journalists and buyers, they go from Egypt to Los Angeles, to the moon tomorrow. They have a treatment unbelievable. They are paid or not paid, I don't know how, but they have the most irreal world and it's really becoming absurd. It's not normal anymore where all that machine is traveling from one point to another. How do they do it? And not only during fashion weeks, during fashion weeks, they're all together in Paris, London, other. But in the whole year round, they are in the best hotels in the world, treated like princes and princesses, and have an enormous. That's not real. That the world is not made like that. It's not a real. It's not the real situation of. It's very fake, and if that is collapsing, the whole system of communication is collapsing, the whole press is collapsing, the whole point of view of critical thinking is collapsing, and that's what's happening. But the whole mechanism of the circus going to Spain, because and then all the artisans, and then she goes to New Delhi, and then you have all the things there before the. It's ridiculous. It's really becoming actually out of the blue. It's not normal. It's absolutely not a situation that can go on. And so what the alternative is, I don't know. Maybe it's what people love and journalists love, but it's not me, it's not you, I don't know.
Yeah. And the in-person experience, right, is something that's beautiful about fashion and art and viewing art and experiencing it in person. I think there's only so much you can see digitally. But when you're in person, it's a special experience, which is why I don't blame the large houses for, if they have the money to make sure everybody can travel and they can do shows in other countries. I think that's amazing. But at the same time, as being a part of the new wave of designers, who can't, take everybody to New Delhi, I think it gives us an interesting opportunity to, find other ways of showcasing our work. And I'm not sure what the answer is really. I just know I'm trying to find that for myself, and other designers that I talk to are trying to find that for themselves as well. And maybe that is the way, though, the large houses will always show their work.
Yeah. I'm not sure, Joy. I can't look into the future. I think Dior is going back to small atelier for doing things. I think that show off in all those magnificent locations is a bit finished for them. And because it's you don't believe in it anymore. It's like every day they make a silhouette, so it's 365 days. Is it 365 days? Yes. They make the whole atelier makes one or two outfits, and she picks it up, and this is for New Delhi, and this is for this is for preview, and this is for that. It's so transparent to me that is the system today. But is this the passion and the authenticity we are looking for? I don't know. I don't think so.
Is, just to borrow a question that you asked Demna in your interview with him that you did recently, is fashion headed in the right direction?
What did he say?
I think he was feeling a bit pessimistic, but he was feeling good about where he was headed.
Well, that's good. I was there with the show, and he's very confident in what he's doing. I felt it. I saw it with my own eyes. I was there. And that makes me happy. I think he's supported by the group. He's working hard. He's achieving something that is not easy to achieve. Absolutely not. There is a kind of integrity what he's doing. He's not playing a game. He's quite honest in what he's doing. I was also at the haute couture. It was a nice moment. It was very warm, and also after the show and hugging, and the whole team was there. The friends were there. It's a family reunion. There is something going on. There is something that I feel becoming part of, because as a student we didn't met. He went before to see what he did, but now seeing him there and in his world, it's matching. It's good. He feels, and that's for me important. If there is integrity in the work, it's okay. If it's a game and it's false, it's not honest, you feel it immediately. If there is an honest feeling good in the situation he is in, and I saw him working there, and I saw the atmosphere, it's good. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess last question for you. What are you working on right now that's inspiring you?
I'm working on my 11 containers to be curated and developed in Toronto. I'm working on an event for Polymoda. I had this idea of the Anarchive. The Anarchive is a project that is a kind of critique to archives, 30,000 pieces that never see the light in museums and archives, So we are going to do an archive research center where we can study the object, touch it, wear it, see it, and so on, and bring it as a kind of research laboratory on top of the school. Because every educational system is now selling courses. It's becoming a business, And so if you don't invest in new ideas to give new input in the educational programs, you're finished. And this Anarchive is my new baby, the baby of the School of Polymoda, to invest in and to discuss on the object of fashion, the object.